Welcome to the Rebekah Panepinto Project. Today I am very excited to host Keenan Hart. He's an entrepreneur, a mental health advocate, and a positivity soldier. Keenan founded his company, which is a telehealth company, back in 2014 to advance access to mental health services within his home state of Nevada. Since then, he has worked with some of the largest healthcare organizations across the United States. Then, in 2021, Keenan recognized the mental health struggles within his community, and he launched a new brand called FRANSiS. They are weaponizing the power of text messages and the psychology of something called an ecological momentary intervention, or an EMI, to bring positivity, support, and encouragement to their users. You get something helpful like a micro mental wellness exercise at your fingertips once a day. We talk all about this awesome business today, but also Keenan's podcast called Hart and Hustle. Enjoy the show. Keenan, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here and talk about everything that we have in store. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you guys have so many cool things going on, which is why I wanted to collaborate with you. I saw all the amazing things with your podcast, but then more importantly, what you're doing through FRANSiS. I think it's just an incredible mission. Love how you're going about making an impact in the world. So let's dive into that, because as I was thinking about your solution, it's text-based. That's almost like when you think of digital transformation, going back a few steps to more of an analog form of communication. But hey, it works and it's impactful. So give us a quick overview of FRANSiS and the vision for how you're communicating with folks successfully through SMS and text messaging.
Yeah, so we are a mental wellness texting service. My experience in the technology space has been kind of prolonged. I first got started in developing technology solutions in 2014 for different healthcare partners. And a lot of the experience that I heard back then was tied to let's innovate by creating another app. Let's innovate by creating a patient portal. And those things were amazing when they're developed in a vacuum, but unfortunately, they don't truly align with, I would say, the consumer-centric behavior that people are used to in this world. People want what they want when they want it now. And a lot of technology, especially in healthcare specifically, is designed, what I would say, in a vacuum. It's designed in a lab by a whole bunch of really smart people. They roll it out to a consumer base, and they're surprised why they don't get the levels of engagement or adoption that they look for. And so when me and the team were thinking about how do we start enhancing the way we support our mental and behavioral health partners, we went back and looked at the data. Now, there's a really interesting statistic that says that mental health applications themselves have a 96% attrition rate at 30 days, meaning somebody downloads an app, 30 days later, only 4% of those people are utilizing that resource. But we continue to double down on these tools because there's that saying, there's an app for everything. So me and the team started going back to the drawing board and saying, what do we know works? And how do we get in front of people on a daily basis? And so we started thinking about the most effective communication tool that we use on a daily basis is text messages. If I want to get in front of my family, I shoot everybody a text. If I reach out to a friend, if they're busy, they're not going to answer a phone call. I can't send them an email, but they will respond to a text message. And so when we started looking at the data, we started thinking about how do we innovate in using technology? But like you said, kind of using SMS text is kind of a reverse strategy in innovating because we know that that's a preference of people. And so we went really, really hard on trying to just use tools that were widely available, that didn't take a certain level of technological literacy to understand, but we could get to the masses and have a scalable solution to spread awareness around mental health, positivity, encouragement, and support.
It's so impactful what you're doing. And what I really love as well is that you've had this approach of different focus areas for your messaging, but then also you've taken a strategy that's really interesting in that you don't hit at like every day the same time. There's this kind of, I don't want to say sporadic because that's not really a fair term, but there's an orchestration for the communication so that you are catching people maybe a little bit off guard to be that much more impactful with that message. So tell us a little bit more about the logic behind that and the impact it's making with your user base.
Yeah, so when we started thinking about the messages that we wanted to deliver to our demographic, we first started in the mental and behavioral health space. And so we started reaching out to our mental and behavioral health partners and saying, hey, we're developing this solution to support your efforts in supporting your patients and clients. Now, what would you say to them in all of the in-between times? Because one of the biggest problems that people have when they're accessing traditional therapy, like a counselor or a therapist, is they spend a lot of time outside of therapy. And so that is one of the gaps in the, I would say, therapy continuum, is being able to support people on a daily basis in real world scenarios. So we went out to all of our partners and said, what messages of support and encouragement would you deliver to these individuals? And we were inundated by all of the response from the therapists, the counselors, the LCSWs, the LMFTs, all of these different levels of mental health providers, the peer support members. And they said, I would send this message of positivity, this message of encouragement, this small exercise. And so we started off with a message database of supportive messages in general that were designed to be supportive to meet people in real world scenarios. Since then, we've worked with different organizations and they've wanted to customize the delivery of their message packs as well. And so we've developed bereavement messages, faith-based messages. We've developed the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, resiliency, retention, burnout. The list goes on. And so what we are looking to do as an organization is to use our vehicle of FRANSiS and the psychology behind it, which is called an ecological momentary intervention. So these EMIs, if you will, are designed to meet people in real world scenarios in real time. And when we talk about text messages, one of the things that I know about everybody pretty much is our little devices are never more than arm's reach away from us. No matter what we're doing, everybody's got their phone on them. And so we utilize that relationship that we have with our phone and how we've been slowly trained over time, if you will, to respond to it when it dings or buzzes to deliver our messages. Now, one of the things that's really important as well is that randomization of our deliveries as well. When we started looking at other solutions in the marketplace, other apps that send push notifications, they'll send you a notification every single day at the same time, 9:03, 12:02 p.m., whatever it is. And the one thing that we started to recognize, if we lean on that modality of delivery, first of all, when we first receive those messages, we're going to be caught off guard by them. But by the time we get to week 2, week 3, week 4, we get used to the habituation of those messages actually being delivered. And so we wanted to catalyze that habituation by delivering our messages between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. So we play on that randomization of you never knowing when your message is going to be delivered. And when it is delivered, it catches your attention. And so it really keeps your mind in a state of being off balance, but never knowing when your message is going to be brought to you. And we found through talking to different leaders and different people in organizations that when they don't receive their message in the morning, it almost creates a sense of hope that they're looking forward to what FRANSiS is going to say to them at the random time throughout the day. And so it's a really cool byproduct of just using a random delivery schedule to be able to deliver a unique message to a unique individual at one time. And then honestly, one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I got from different leaders in the very beginning was, is my entire team going to receive the same message at the same time each day? If that's true, I don't think we really want that solution. So we really listened to our customers, got as much feedback about our solution as we were developing it. And that's really why we honed in on that random delivery process.
And then different folks can be on the different messaging tracks as well, correct? Based on the season of life they're in, stage of life, etc.
That's exactly right. You know, we do a lot of work with hospice organizations, actually. And one of the biggest things that hospice organizations have to do is provide bereavement support. Now, bereavement in itself, if we lose a loved one, we go through that process of grief and loss, is definitely a journey. And when we start off that journey, maybe we need more messages about grief and loss and coping with this extreme feeling. But as time goes on, we do give our subscribers the ability to change up their messages because like, okay, I've gotten past this intense process that I've been going through. And now I need a little bit more positivity. I need a little bit more high performance mindset. I've got other areas in my life that need support. And I would love FRANSiS to be able to deliver those things as well.
What are some of those amazing stories you've heard that have brought a smile to yourself when you've heard that, like, somebody was in this scenario and this text came through that just hit the nail on the head and it created a certain reaction from that individual?
Well, I have 2 stories for you. So when we first developed FRANSiS in late 2021, we were incredibly excited about the solution and the impact that it was going to have. But one of the things that we found was in a personal scenario, my father was actually diagnosed with prostate cancer. And that experience of being diagnosed with a life-threatening illness and disease is something that catches people off guard. And now my father's always been somebody who's been so jovial, so encouraging, so outgoing. And when he went through this entire process of his diagnosis and figuring out how he's going to treat this, he started acting a little bit more retracted. He wasn't as outgoing. He wasn't as spontaneous as he was. And that was totally understandable. But the day when he went into his first targeted radiation treatment, he received a FRANSiS message that morning. So he was sitting in the parking lot at like 9:30 a.m. and he received a text message from FRANSiS that said, "Today you are taking small steps towards positive change for yourself. And now after his appointment, he called me because that morning he went completely radio silent, no morning text. I called him and said, hey, I know today's a big day. Didn't answer my phone call. And I thought something was up. After his appointment, he called me and said, Keenan, did you send me that message intentionally through FRANSiS? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, this is the text message that I got that day. And it gave me the strength and the courage to recognize I needed to walk through the doors and start this process so I could be around for you guys. Now, this is an incredibly emotional story for me because I never thought that something I developed was going to give somebody in my family that boost of encouragement and strength that they needed in a tough moment. That was an incredible story for us. And that's really been kind of the driving passion behind why I know that a simple text message can be the difference that somebody needs to take on a big challenge. The other story that we've had was from one of our subscribers. Her name is Steph. Now, she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And as she was going through her treatment process, she unfortunately went through chemo and lost all of her hair. And she was too sick at one point in time to be treated for her cancer. And she got a text message from FRANSiS that said, just remember everything that you have gone through to this point in time. You are strong enough to get through this, and there is better things ahead for you. And in that moment, she said that that simple message was a reminder for her to appreciate everything that she's overcome in this process thus far, and that she needed to give her body a little bit of grace and love for everything that she had gone through in this process as well. And so just hearing those little, I would say, notions of encouragement and how they impact everybody differently is amazing. But that's also one of the fundamental elements of why text messages can be so powerful. There's a terminology called interpretation flexibility. Whenever we see something in the world, our brain, kind of in a selfish manner, says, how does this apply to me? And so the simplicity of a text like, today you're taking small steps towards positive change for yourself, can mean something to me in my situation, something completely different to Rebekah in her situation, or something completely different to somebody else who's going through a tough time. And so that's why we get so passionate about the simplicity of digital transformation, if you will. And if we use the right types of tools, we can have a gigantic impact. It doesn't have to be something new and shiny, but we can repurpose what we're already used to using, and it can make a tremendous difference.
What's important there is, I think, a quality of content delivery, though, too. Like, you can't just have everything be, the quotes that hit Instagram and hit the top 100 quotes every year. It's got to be unique enough that it can make an impact at a different level to different folks and have quality and meat to it, like a Charlie Munger quote or other individuals that have been seen as super thoughtful. So what does that process look like to make sure when you put somebody on a focused messaging path that they're not going to see, scripted tidbits that they run across in other areas of their life, but that it is really unique, really impactful content that can be meaningful beyond even what it was intentionally intended to make an impact or a point about?
I mean, we use a strategic board of content matter experts. So one of the biggest things that we heard when we first got started are these going to be the affirmations and the quotes that we see on Instagram, right? And there's a place for those things, which I think is amazing. But when we really think about making true impact, we want to be able to lean into the people who are the experts in this space. And so all of our messages are curated, reviewed, and then we use our user base to be able to gather feedback about what we can improve as well. And what I like to really focus on, especially in 2024, is something that my team calls the feedback flywheel. We get users onto the platform, and we are consistently taking every opportunity to engage with our subscribers, with the organizations, to be able to improve our product. Because it's one thing to build it one time and say, this is good enough. But the difference between a product that you build with insights from your subscribers or from your users and use that feedback to continuously improve it is incredibly important. And then we cycle all that feedback back to our strategic review board, and they continue to enhance and change and tweak the messages as well. I mean, one of the most recent things that we've done is we started working with a lot of education systems. So one of the biggest problems that the youth have today, especially in inner cities, is a lot of kids are coming from single parent households, and they don't have the support, encouragement, and the simple message of, I'm proud of you, coming from their parents or maybe even their teachers. And so one thing that we've done was we worked with a school counselor out of Massachusetts who actually curated our database and changed a lot of our messages from our standard database to a third grade reading level. Because one of the things that's necessary is you can be as smart as you want to be, but if your subscribers don't understand from a language perspective the message that you're communicating, you're basically sending a message out into deaf ears. And so we're always looking to enhance the way we deliver our messages and our concepts by making them as simple as possible to be as scalable as possible. No matter what your education level is or your technological literacy, you should be able to understand the messages that we send to you as well.
Maybe throw an emoji in there.
And maybe throw an emoji in there. Exactly. Yeah.
So then when it comes to your own mental health too, what are some areas within your life where you've focused and been intentional about making sure that you're at the top of your game, you're making an impact and taking care of yourself so you can be that much more for the people around you?
You know, the one lesson that I've learned as I got a little bit older is if I do not take care of myself, I'm not going to be able to show up for my team and the people who I engage with on a daily basis. So mental health is a really important subject to me because I grew up as an athlete. I was around some amazing leaders in the forms of coaches, men and women who I trusted. But one thing that I noticed was we didn't ever have conversations around mental health and why it was important. The feelings of inadequacy that we had as athletes when we weren't being successful, the feelings of comparison to other people in our peer group or outside of our peer group. Those things were very interesting to me. And so as I've gotten older, I've really thought about how do I strategically, tactfully, and intentionally maintain my own mindset. And just growing up in a physical world of sports, the gym is a huge part of my life. You know, one of the things that I recognize is if I don't get the gym in, if I don't actively move each day, I start to go a little bit stir crazy. And I think a huge part of balancing the stresses of the entrepreneurial journey, the stresses of business, the ups and downs that we have as well, is getting into the gym and making sure that my body and my mind are both taken care of. So one thing that I know a lot of people struggled with over the pandemic was this new work from home environment. Now, when I started my business in 2014, I've been working from home all this time. And so this was not anything new to me, but I saw a lot of people struggling with it. And so one of the things that I've really been intentional about is creating a space where I work and then closing the door at the end of the daytime and then transitioning into my home life. When we don't have those borders and those established boundaries, it's very easy to let the stresses and everything else come towards you on a daily basis. And I was actually speaking with one of my mentors the other day, and he said, Keenan, if you're looking to really level up your ability to shake off the day, you need to start implementing a symbolic routine into when you come home. And he said, what I do, and I suggest you do as well, is I have a little brush at the front door. So when I come in the door, I brush myself off, my shoes, my clothes, to get all the dirt off me. But that also means that I'm brushing off the entire day and everything else that I've carried with me. And so I've started implementing that as well. And it might seem like a little nuance, but it really has been something that's had a major effect on my daily routine and my ability to kind of brush off the day's activities and then transition into being home with my girlfriend and my dog and everybody else.
Now, you're an incredible storyteller, and I loved the stories you shared about the FRANSiS interactions that people have had that changed their day, put a smile on their face. What are maybe one or two of those that have come out of the podcast? Maybe in a guest that you've had or even a listener responding to your content?
So I had a guest by the name of Hunter Cheney on my podcast. Now, me and him went to school together. We were in the same fraternity. And as business has taken me in different places and I moved around the world, he's been on his own journey of maturation and development. And one of the things that he's been doing is using his voice in a podcast format to be able to spread awareness around the word of Christ. And so he uses the podcast as an ability to get in front of the youth, which I think is incredible. But he also does an incredible amount of work inside of prisons and jail systems as well. Because he talks about one thing that everybody thinks about when somebody goes to jail is they've been written off by society. But a lot of these people have made mistakes in their life. Now they're serving their time and dealing with their punishment. But when they come out, they want to be a different version of themselves for not only their individual self, but for their family and the people that they can impact. And so Hunter really opened up my eyes to how content can be used to spread awareness around his mission to get more people into faith, but also impact a portion of our society that very frankly has been kind of written off and forgotten. And so being able to use the podcast to spread his message, being able to engage with him around the things that he's passionate about is something that I didn't expect. But because of the podcast, we were able to reconnect as friends here in Las Vegas and really talk about some subjects that he doesn't share too often. And I thought that that was an amazing story. But it just comes down to, once again, that ability to connect with people is just so valuable. And I think we see a lot of ourselves in other people's stories as well. And Hunter does an amazing job of communicating that through his message as well.
Amazing. Now, when it comes to content delivery, especially with the FRANSiS platform, with the SMS strategy, attention spans are shortening. These things are changing. I'm sure you've thought about the next iteration of digital and impact with your customers. What do you think that looks like in the next 3 to 4 years to continue to be able to capture people's attention and meet them where they need to be to have those different interactions be impactful?
Man, one of the things that we are really excited about is the utilization of VR. So we have a complete new generation of people who are spending time in these environments that are fictionalized, but they're also incredibly immersive. And as I think on how much time we spend locked into our little devices, when that technology comes out and it's fully baked, people are going to be more in that environment, my guess is, than they are currently here, because they can find the things that they want to do. They can interact with friends from all over the world. They can have that sense of community. And so we've actually been working with some organizations that are specializing in push notifications inside of those environments to be able to deliver our messages as a little pop-up banner or a piece of interactive content that somebody can come across in one of their landscapes or their worlds that they're talking to as well. And so that's some of the stuff that we're baking up for 2024 with some of our strategic partners. But that's something I'm really excited about as well, because you're never going to be able to fully pull people away from technology, but we have to understand where the attention of these people is at. And so being able to deliver that in those environments is something that I'm excited for in the next 4, 5, 10 years, because I know that stuff is coming.
Yeah, and it's back to what you're talking about earlier with the EMI, which I wasn't familiar with until you brought it up. It's like pattern interruption that isn't distracting, but instead valuable. And so I'm sure a lot of that research is built into the timing and making sure that you're hitting the nail on the head when it comes to reaching out to people. What are some other areas of research and focus that you think you're going to need to invest in to continue to advance this being impactful?
Yeah, AI is a big focus for us right now. We're working with a couple content matter experts out of Florida and also here in Vegas to be able to understand how we use our messaging capabilities to create a more personalized, I would say, messaging journey. And so, a lot of organizations have really started to focus on AI, and they mean automation and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that we focus on from an AI perspective is weaponizing our data. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are actively getting their messages on a daily basis, and being able to create a better feedback flywheel, like I talked about a little bit earlier, to direct people down a certain path and having them engage with their messages in FRANSiS will dictate their own unique individual journey. So if we recognize somebody's dealing with more stress than they normally have, or we can look at the messages from an AI perspective and look at keywords that they say, being able to use that data to feed back into their experience is only something that we are trying to lean more heavily into, because it's going to create a completely dynamic experience compared to what we have now. And I'm really excited about what 2024 is going to look like for us for that.
Yeah, it almost feel like you're talking to your therapist or another human, and can be able to be extremely timely and personalized.
Yeah.
That's very
One
cool.
of the things that I think about, and this is kind of strategic, was our logo is a little purple gorilla inside of a messaging bubble, right? And as we were going out to our clinical advisors, when we first started developing FRANSiS, we started talking about who should be delivering these messages. And one of our clinical advisors said, not who, but what should be delivering these messages, because there's a lot of stigma around communicating with a person, right? We're somewhat guarded, especially from a lot of the male perception and demographic. We don't exactly open up to people unless we have a real trust-based basis. And so personifying a wellness companion in the form of a little purple gorilla is something that I know people can lean into, because I also had that experience. So one of the things that you can't see, or you might be able to see in the screen here, is there's a little gorilla that sits back here on my shelf. Now, that gorilla's name is Key, and that was actually given to me when I was born by my dad. And now when I was younger, I was like, I love that little gorilla. I carried it around everywhere. But as I got older, I started using it as a sounding board, if you will. When I came home and I was frustrated about sports or school or a girl or whatever it was, I would talk to Key and be like, this is like really stressful. I can't believe I'm going through this. I hope times get better. And he was always somebody who was willing to listen to me. And he was never judgmental, always compassionate, and always had an open ear. And so we took our lived experience, specifically mine, and started thinking about how do we personify a wellness companion. And it just so happened that a gorilla was something that a lot of our users navigated towards because it represents community, strength, independence, family, and communication. And that's kind of where we've been able to lean into our little companion guy.
What about the purple branding piece too? I really think of purple as warm, and even there, like your background just looks very inviting and very like chill, almost like a spa that you're walking to. Is there something behind specifically the hue of purple that you guys have?
So we started talking to, once again, our clinical advisors, and they were like, let's think of calming scents and experiences. And often lavender is a calming scent that people like to enjoy when they're in a spa or something else like that. And it just so happened that purple was also my mother's favorite color. And so when we heard that, I was like, this is it. And I really try and use my business as a feedback mechanism, if you will, to have my family personified in what I'm building. And we're a family-owned business. My co-founder is my sister, and being able to share our family experience and also have a positive impact on other people is something that I'm willing to do every single day. And so you're just seeing all the different elements of our family experience and our feedback kind of in FRANSiS, kind of personified into the world.
And I'm sure that's what draws your audience and your customers even closer too, is the authenticity and the heart that you've put into this business, which is really, really cool. So now, Keenan, I have one final question for you, and it's around principles. And I'm curious, what is the guiding principle that you've lived by to be successful in business?
So I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and we were talking about the principle of optimism. So as an entrepreneur, especially going through the entrepreneurial journey, there's ups and downs, right? There's negative experiences, there's super high highs, and there's super low lows. And so optimism in a practical sense, I'm not talking about like everything is go happy and everything is lucky, but being able to control a practical optimism and how we look at the world, and looking at negative experiences as learning opportunities, looking at the good experiences as blessings and things that we've been able to accomplish because of our hard work, has really been a fundamental principle in my life. And at the end of the day, I don't think I'm ever going to be disappointed with having an optimistic attitude in how I engage with people, how I try and build my business, and how I try and reinforce my mindset as I take on the challenges of trying to grow a business and build a lifestyle for my friends and family.
Super inspiring. This has been so much fun, Keenan. I'm excited for us to keep tabs on your journey. And for those that are watching, you can actually get a free trial with FRANSiS on their website, and you can check out the podcast.